You say that you have no keenness of wit. Be it so, but there are many other things of which you cannot say that nature has not endowed you. Show those qualities then that are perfectly in your power: sincerity, gravity, patience and labour, aversion to pleasure, contentment with your lot and with little, frankness, dislike of superfluity, freedom from pettiness. Do you not see how many qualities you are immediately able to exhibit, as to which you have no excuse of natural incapacity and unfitness, and yet you still remain voluntarily below what you might be? We've all at one time or another wished for talents or innate attributes that we don't naturally possess, whether that be greater athletic ability, higher intelligence, more charisma, or being better looking or taller. It's just so incredibly easy to look around and see so many people having effortless success solely as a result of their natural talent. Some people will go to the gym without having ever lifted before and deadlift like 400 pounds, more than a lot of people will accomplish after years of hard lifting and dedicated training. Naturally intelligent people can often turn up to school, not study much, and still get top grades, and will often end up in the highest paying jobs society has to offer. People who are good looking enjoy better outcomes in many different facets of society. This can really make it seem like you're missing out and should be living a lot better than you currently are if you just had what these people had. Around 2,000 years ago, Marcus Aurelius addressed this very problem in his Meditations, in which he addresses someone who is complaining that they don't have an intelligence that anyone can look up to or admire. Now, what Aurelius points out is that even if it's true that we have an innate deficit in a skill like this, there are countless skills that it's within our power to start exhibiting immediately. He lists a few examples of patience, sincerity, gravity, a dislike of pettiness and needless indulgence, abstinence from pleasure, work ethic, and a satisfaction with what one has in life. There can be no excuse that any of these are beyond our control in the way that height or intelligence might be, yet most of us remain below the mark voluntarily of where we might be. Now, I've always been overall pretty satisfied with my innate characteristics and have never found myself envying other people's massively, but I've still found this teaching to be of massive benefit to me in my own life. Since 2018, I've had a debilitating illness, chronic fatigue syndrome, which heavily limits my functioning and as a result what I can do. I've lost an extreme amount of physical fitness and muscularity as a result of having to give up training entirely, and overall, the amount that I'm able to work or function is far below what a healthy person should. This has often been the source of a lot of frustration for me. I wake up eager to pursue my goals, yet there are many days where my symptoms are simply too debilitating to be able to sit at a desk for any extended amount of time or to exert mental effort on a creative or intellectual task. I'm sure a lot of people watching this video right now are also very goal-oriented people who live to pursue their goals. And if you're like that, then you'll know how frustrating it is to be restricted from pursuing your ambition and have to just watch days pass by feeling a sense of stagnation and failure. This was how I used to feel when facing these difficult days, but reflecting on Stoic teachings has changed my perspective a lot. Now, while this teaching isn't really aimed at dealing with illness, I recognize that just as it's beyond my control whether or not I possess certain innate characteristics or talents, it's equally beyond my control whether I wake up in the morning experiencing debilitating symptoms that will keep me mostly in bed, or whether I feel well enough to do something productive. In both the case of health and with a lack of talent, we have an unchangeable characteristic that we feel holds us back in life, yet we can't do anything about it and so feel discontented. This feeling of powerlessness at being able to get what you want out of life can really make you feel doomed. So after applying this teaching to my own situation, rather than getting frustrated and thinking negatively about my inability to pursue my goals, I realized that I can just switch my goals for that day, focusing instead on developing the traits of my mind and character that are within my control at all times. I might be unable to control the level of productivity I have available to me, but I can choose to face my day with good spirits. I can hold the attitude that my circumstances in life are good, and I can refrain from complaining about my bad health. I can also develop my discipline by avoiding lapsing into bad habits, like just spending all day on my phone watching YouTube while I lay in bed. Now, this might sound to some people like a sad thing for your day to amount to, but I find these goals to be more than worthy. Knowing that what I'm doing will lead to self-improvement of character and greater mental strength is a very fulfilling goal to know you've achieved for that day. Not only is it innately satisfying for me to exercise discipline and know that I'm facing my illness with courage, but I'll also reap long-term benefits on the days that I feel healthy again, when I'm able to use these character traits to pursue my goals with more rigor. If I can stay disciplined and refrain from indulging in just using my phone excessively when I'm having a really terrible day, then I know that on my good days, I'll have a much greater ability to focus and discipline myself and pump out that work to the highest degree possible. Plus, being able to triumph over a severe chronic illness by maintaining a strong attitude and good spirits is something that very few people achieve in life. And this means that it yields additional satisfaction. For me, and I think for a lot of people, it's important to feel as though what you're doing in life is somewhat authentic and meaningful. And I think that this is what drives us towards many of the typical pursuits that we follow. Having chronic illness massively interferes with, or can even destroy the possibility of achieving many of these typical pursuits. And this is one of the reasons for the despair that it causes. But this gives you a unique opportunity to accomplish something in life that very few people have the possibility to even attempt. Conquer life by facing a debilitating illness with courage and good spirits. Now, I'm not intending to imply that this is always easy to do. It's not. But goals in life aren't supposed to be easy, yet they're still worth making progress and pursuing. Stoicism is a philosophy that's supposed to be practiced, not just memorized and then immediately put into effect with perfection and yielding great results. Like any other skill, controlling our mind to refrain from giving in to temptation or to always maintain a positive attitude regardless of circumstance are things that can be improved upon. I'm certainly not claiming to have mastered these teachings and be some sort of perfect stoic who's always able to overcome temptation and always upholds a perfect positive attitude. But I am happy with the progress I've made, which I do believe to be substantial. And that's really the key. If you can even make some progress, then you're better off than where you were in the past. So overall, rather than despairing about your circumstances, personal characteristics, or lack of talent, which fall outside of your control, recognize that there are countless important character traits that lie firmly in your grasp, and you can choose to cultivate and embody these. When dealing with a lack of talent or with bad circumstances that can't be changed, the best thing that we can do is put all our focus and effort into developing the strongest character and mind that we can. It is in times of security that the spirit should be preparing itself for difficult times. Whilst fortune is bestowing favours on it, is then the time for it to be strengthened against her rebuffs. There will always be better and worse times in everyone's life, but the last thing we want is to be caught off guard by life's adversity and challenges. Seneca notes that in the midst of peace, soldiers are always going through drills and training hard without a single enemy in sight, so that when it is necessary they can match any task that's demanded of them. We should apply the same idea to our mind. Rather than blindly indulging during the times that life is good, and remaining willfully ignorant to the fact that the days are numbered of these good times, we should prepare our mind for the inevitability of times with full of difficulties emerging. Seneca even suggests a practical exercise to get this done. He says that we should restrict ourselves to bland food and only rough, basic clothing for a few days at a time. This will allow your mind to not get too accustomed to luxury, so that you'll feel too terrible if ever it were to be stripped away from you. In general, being mentally prepared for adversity and bad luck will enable us to manage it in a stronger fashion. Expecting things to always run smoothly and comfortably sets you up for immense disappointment. If you're watching this video, then like me, you're most likely between the ages of 18 to 30. And in that case, you haven't even faced the most difficult adversity of your life yet. But if we meditate daily on the fact that we will inevitably face much harder times, whether that be in the next hour, the next day, or the next year, and stay temperate and disciplined rather than overindulging in pleasures during our prosperous times, then we'll fare much better during those hard times, no matter what sort of difficulty we're facing. People we care about might be taken away from us. We might lose significant parts of our wealth. We might lose our jobs. We might have an accident that leads to a loss of functioning, an injury, or bad health. We should remember carefully that all that we enjoy in life is extremely temporary and also susceptible to the tides of fate. If we can enjoy the good things in life without attaching our sense of satisfaction or fulfillment to them, things will go better for us. In my own case, this teaching has helped me to cultivate the right mindset for living well with disease. Just as in ordinary life, I have many peaks and valleys in terms of my level of health and functioning. I'll sometimes have periods where I feel significantly better than my usual norm. I'm able to do a lot more with my days, and it really feels amazing to have some of my functioning back. But often in the past, I would delude myself into thinking this was now a permanent state of affairs. I had permanently improved my health, and this was just simply how it was going to be from now on. I would pay no mind to the fact that this level of well-being was temporary and that disease would soon claw me back to where I was before. Having no regard for the fact that these phases were temporary made it bitterly frustrating when I was inevitably pushed back into worse health and had to forego that level of functioning and well-being once more. Nowadays, a regular reflection I make during my meditation sessions is that my symptoms are likely to get worse again for periods of time. Rather than stressing at the idea of dropping below some basic level of health and functioning, I try and lose my attachment to having a certain level of function, and instead try and just let my mind go with the flow. When I do feel good, I take full advantage in terms of productivity, but I remind myself that it's not likely to last, and that I shouldn't remain attached to it. Now, whilst you might be thinking that this teaching from Seneca promotes overthinking and evoking anxiety in oneself by constantly thinking that bad things are coming, this really hasn't been my experience with the teaching. In fact, it's been quite the opposite. You can remind yourself that harder times are coming and predict many of the challenges you'll face in advance so that they don't come as surprises, without judging them to be terrible things that will make your life awful. You can accept this as part of life and take solace in the fact that actually it's within your control to face the difficult times with contentment, especially if they don't come by surprise. There is nothing for me to fear about a period of worse health besides my judgment that it's a terrible thing. As Seneca says, the only safe harbour in this life's tossing, troubled sea is to refuse to be bothered about what the future will bring and to stand ready and confident, square in the breast, to take without skulking or flinching whatever fortune holds at us. Now, for the last Stoic teaching I'm going to discuss, I wanted to sort of elaborate further on the common Stoic idea that it's not your circumstances that matter in terms of your life going well, it's your judgment and beliefs about your own circumstances that do. If you believe what you have in life to be good and sufficient, then it is, and you'll be happy. If you believe yourself to be hard done by in life, then you won't be happy with what you have. Now, this is a familiar point to anyone who's at all experienced with Stoicism, but I wanted to elaborate further a bit on it with some of my own thoughts. The teaching most obviously applies itself to wealth and material possessions that one possesses. As Seneca says, however much you possess, there's someone else who has more, and you'll be fancying yourself to be short of things you need, to the exact extent to which you lag behind him. Now, as I discussed in another video, this teaching actually applies equally to health and energy levels. No matter how good you feel day to day, no matter how much energy you have and how much capacity you have to do productive things, there'll always be someone out there with more. If you imagine a spectrum of health, where on the one side you have the sickest people possible, and then on the other side you have these hypothetical Ubermenschen, who don't need to sleep whatsoever and just have insane levels of energy and well-being to where they always feel good and can just work at the maximal capacity 24/7. Now, most people are going to sit somewhere around the middle on this spectrum. But what I realized is the precise point you pick on the spectrum of health and functioning as the level that's required for fulfillment, contentment, and happiness in life is entirely arbitrary. You can always look to a greater level of functioning and you can always find a person with that greater level of functioning. And you can always think about how much better your life could be if you could just attain that level. But thinking that you can't be happy unless you attain that level is just as much as a case of mistaken thinking as it is when applied to wealth and possessions. When you meditate on the fact that there's no objective level of health required for one to be happy, just as there's no objective level of wealth required for one to be happy, this becomes easier. Of course, once you've experienced high levels of health and then have it taken away from you, it's more difficult to be satisfied with less. But that doesn't mean it's impossible. And with careful training of the mind and commitment to Stoic principles, you can reach that satisfaction even with a diminished state of health.